I am Amber and I'm an intuition and subconscious breakthrough mentor. I created this podcast for you to show you your infinite potential, help you break down the barriers to more love in your life, and to make joy a choice by listening to your intuition. No matter if you're married or single, this show is for you because the world would be a much more loving and better place if we learned to all date ourselves. Together we let go of fears and resistance around your dream life so you can show up in your full authenticity. Disclaimer, listening to this podcast might result in a continuous glow up. Let's start the show. Hi lovelies, welcome back to Date Yourself. Thank you so much for listening. I just got my Spotify Wrapped a few weeks back and you guys are amazing. I am so appreciative of you for tuning into these episodes, listening to my rambles. You don't know how much that means to me, so thank you so much this year for supporting me. And if you have any questions, if you have any topics that you want me to talk about, just know that you can always send me an Instagram DM. My Instagram is always linked in the show notes. Or you can email me if you'd rather do that. I will also link my email down below. Let me know. So I love you so much. Thank you. This episode is going to be, it's inspired by the previous episode and also a question that I got over on Insta. And it's also kind of for my inner child, this episode. These are some things that I wanted to know when I was younger. And it's about how to fight for the relationships that you want. So the question that I got was like, my friend is changing, like culturally they're changing, but also because they have a partner now. And you know those moments where first the relationship was one thing and then something happens, a life change happens, or maybe you're a shift in priorities and then it doesn't feel the same and you're just like, what is this? What can we still make of this friendship, relationship, family dynamic, right? I've been there many times and through trial and error, like I have some things that I wish that I would have done better, but I've also learned a lot. I've learned a lot because this is something that not many people know about me. So I'm gonna tell you a little secret, and I'm telling you this because it's really personal, but I'm telling you this because this has showed me so much of the work that we can do when it comes to relationships. So I've gone to family therapy, like literally with my family being in one room and then having a therapist with us, guiding us through some shit that we've been dealing with within the family. And it's been so hard, but it's also been super rewarding. So we've been doing that for 2 years. And this is just my personal experience. Don't want to expose my family, or because I know that they wouldn't want that. All I want you to know that there was a relationship in my life within my family that I did not see going anywhere. And we've done the work to repair that relationship. And at one point I thought that it was not going to be. I thought like, I don't want this person in my life anymore. And that really, really hurt. And so we've both have been doing the work to change that because we love each other and we want what's best for the other person, but we also want that relationship with each other. So I want to talk about my perspective on that. I'm not a family therapist, so just know that that's my personal story. And also give you the perspective because I'm an EFT tapping coach and subconscious breakthrough mentor, right? So I help you to see yourself with self-respect, with self-love. And the moment that you start to change these family dynamics or these friendships dynamics or these romantic relationship dynamics, when you start to see yourself in your power, with your self-respect, with your self-love, all those relationships also change, right? So the relationships also kind of reflect who you become as a person and how you feel about yourself. And this podcast is meant to be empowering because how other people make you feel, if it's a family dynamic, for example, you cannot really get out of that because that's where you've born into, right? Well, how other people make you feel does not reflect your self-worth. So for example, if someone is not really seeing you, if someone is not really hearing you, it doesn't mean that you're not meant to be heard or seen, right? Your emotions are valid. You are worthy of kindness and respect, right? So the actions of someone else do not reflect your worthiness. I want to get into when to know, like when to fight for the relationship and when to let it go, how to fight for the relationship when someone does not want to work on it with you, and what to do when they do. When we grow up, we start to believe certain things, and so spending time with family can be really triggering. And they also are the best mirror to show us, like, where do I still not feel good enough, or where do I still kind of shrink myself to not make someone else feel uncomfortable or trigger someone else, right? We trigger each other a lot within family dynamics, or we just pretend that we don't, and that's kind of the coping mechanism. So EFT is always here to help you work through that, to let those triggers soften or let them go completely, so you can still stay in your own power. So that's what I do. So if you want to know more about that, learn more about that, you can always check my website, because I think that you deserve to feel comfortable and confident within yourself, no matter what kind of relationship you're dealing with, whether that's romantic, friendship, or family. And it's really possible to feel worthy within any relationship. Like I said, in the last episode, it's about not matching someone's energy, just seeing your own energy. If you're a pleaser, if you're an empath, that's really hard, right? So what we do when I coach you is just really get clear on what your energy is and what you want and how you feel, and to really hone in on that and stay in that, which is a beautiful practice to do and makes life a lot easier. Okay, so I want to get into staying when it's uncomfortable. This is something that I've learned, like I said, within the family therapy, because we were in one room together and we had to face our things, because otherwise, what were we going to spend that hour on, right? Because we were there for a purpose. So I know that I'm really lucky to have a family that cooperated in that sense. It was not even my idea. They asked me to come to family therapy, and I was just like, yeah, let's see like what needs to be looked at. I was actually really excited because I love these types of things, like I'm a coach. But then when I got there, man, was it confrontational. It was a lot. I did not expect to, we had a really good therapist, let's just put it at that. And what I learned, and which is really interesting within family dynamics, is that we all hold power over the whole dynamic. So even though you might think that you're perfect within the communication or whatever, you still are contributing to toxic cycles always. Like we all are in the dynamic. When one of the people in the dynamic falls away, the dynamic changes. I can speak for my own self because I don't want to get into the rest. But for example, I was still pleasing too much. I was still doing a lot of work when it came to keeping the peace and keeping the harmony. That's kind of my pattern, right? And so when I stepped out of that, which my therapist helped me with, the dynamic started to change. And so that was really uncomfortable, but it was a beautiful way of seeing like where my priority lay within the dynamic. So I felt uncomfortable when things were going quote unquote wrong. Like there was tension or someone wanted to get into a fight or whatever. And I was just like, no, let me fix it for ya. That doesn't work because we can never fix someone else's things, right? And so when I started to look at that and be just like, oh, that's not my responsibility, I don't have to do that. Other people also thought that it was pretty irritating. That's like how I showed up in the pattern, right? So when I took accountability for that and I listened to like, okay, but like, why am I doing that? It made me feel empowered, and it made me feel really weird to not keep the peace, keep the harmony. It made me feel very uncomfortable, but that's why I did it. I intervened because I was uncomfortable. So it was not even for the good of the family dynamic. It was just because I was getting uncomfortable. It was my coping mechanism. So I'm sharing this because within your relationships, you also have a tendency to stay in a pattern. And if it's really hard working through an issue within a relationship, don't assume that you know everything. Don't assume that you are perfect. We all have a lot to learn, and I'm still not perfect within the family dynamic. Like we've done a lot of work on it. I know that within friendships, I can still grow. Within relationships, I can still grow. And it's so important to not be too fast to have your opinion ready or your conclusion or have expectations, because you also have to do the work. And it sometimes doesn't have to do with the other person. It sometimes have to do with your uncomfortable feeling and your trigger. Because all that was my responsibility. Because I was feeling uncomfortable, I created a pattern, which made it easy for other people to not look at their own stuff because I was going to handle it, right? That was not healthy for me either, but I created that. See how that works? Like, I wanted them to take more accountability for their own stuff, but because I was uncomfortable and I was trying to keep the peace, I was preventing that from happening because I got uncomfortable, right? I did not see that, and that's why you sometimes need a coach or a therapist, because I didn't see that, right? So the most important thing is to listen and be open. And that is vulnerable, and that is exactly how you can change the relationship dynamic. That's the only way. That's the only way. So one of the other things that I've learned, and this is hard because we all do this. We all do this. We point the finger at the other person. We're just like, yeah, but you this, and then you made me feel like that. And because of that, like I did that. Like it's reciting what happened. And that's mostly where conflict comes from, right? So for example, in the friend dynamic, like of the question that I got, it's probably like, yeah, but you changed so much and you're not spending enough time with me. I'm just assuming right now, okay? So this is an example. I don't know what's happening, okay? So just take that with a grain of salt. So we could say like, okay, but you're doing this, and so that's why this is not working for me anymore, right? But at the same time, if we can be open to know like, okay, is there a reason for you doing this, or is there something that you want me to know that you didn't tell me, or how are you actually feeling? Is it just coming from a curious place instead of like, you're doing this, so now I have to do this, right? It's about, can we look deeper into how it makes us feel? Because it's always because of a trigger. It's always because of a feeling that causes a reaction. For example, when there was tension within my family, or I felt like, okay, there's gonna be a discussion or a fight or whatever, I would tense up, and then my pattern would kick in of trying to keep the peace and keeping the harmony. So I would just push myself in what was going on and trying to, make everything go away. You can point at them and say like, okay, why would you do that and whatever? But ultimately, you got triggered. Maybe it's a fear of abandonment. Maybe it's a fear of things being different, and you don't like getting out of your comfort zone, or, and it doesn't always have to be like this, that it's like about you. Like, I know that I try to look at like, okay, what does this have to do with me before I tend to point to someone else, like, you did this wrong. That's not always needed, right? Because sometimes people are just assholes and it's pretty clear what's happening. So don't take that too literally of to be like, it's always like something within me. No, sometimes it's not. But if this is a relationship that you want to fight for, you have to look at like, what is this triggering within me? And that's the thing that you need to communicate. So it doesn't really have any use to be just like, okay, this happened and this happened, because that's not what it's about. Underneath it is a feeling that you get. It's that trigger. And when we communicate that trigger, when we communicate that feeling, it's more out in the open. When we're vulnerable, someone can really hear us and see like what we actually want from that person. So it just gets rid of all the unnecessary pointing, basically. So I would be, within my family dynamic, to just take an example, just be like, you guys, I feel very uncomfortable right now because I feel like you guys are getting into a fight, and so this is not fun. I don't know what to do here. It's just very basic. It's not about pointing fingers to like, you said that and that's not kind, and why did you react that way, and blah, blah, blah. No, it's just like, oh, okay, I feel this. I'm just letting you guys know, and it sounds stupid, but that's really what it comes down to. It's like, I feel uncomfortable here. So for example, when it comes to the friend, I would just be like, hey, I feel like I'm losing you, and that makes me feel a little scared or a little sad or angry, because like I really care about you, and I don't want to lose you. That's like most basic language that you can get to, because to the core, that's that. And the more that we can get into the pointing of like, you did this and then that happened, and now I feel like I just need to do this because, the more that we are getting away from the vulnerability. And the way that we can repair a relationship is to stay in the vulnerability, because it's really about the feeling. It's really about the trigger. And repairing this relationship with this family member, that is what we had to do repeatedly. And then comes the tricky part, because with this, you're choosing to fight for this person, right? Because you are now vulnerable. And that takes a lot of courage, because you don't know how that's going to be perceived. It's the most vulnerable part of it. Like, it's down to the basic language. So when someone is not hearing you within that hurts. You don't want that. That's why a lot of people don't do that. But I want to encourage you, and because this was also like a question, if this is a friendship that you really value, if you see like, I think that I would really regret it if I did not fight for this, right? If there is a relationship that you want to fight for, you have to get into the ring. You have to take the risk, take it on with courage to tell this person in that way that is really what is happening. Then you can see if that other person also wants to step into the ring with you to fight for you as well. And that is not something that I can give advice on, because that's just something that you want to take the risk to do, or you don't, right? But when I look back on my relationships, I think that this is something that I did not do enough. I've lost people in my life because I did not tell them how I actually felt. And because it was really scary, and because I did not want to make them feel uncomfortable or weird about it, but I felt weird about it. And so I'm kind of looking back, and this is also why this episode is for my younger self, is like, why did we take that long to fight for what we believe in, fight for the people that we love? And I do regret not having those conversations for two reasons. One being not being able to step up for myself, because you're also telling someone like, hey, I feel like I want this, I feel like I need this. And I do think that you owe that to yourself, because you are creating the life that you want to live, right? And you choose the people that you want to have in your life. And so sometimes we need to fight for those people to stay in our lives. Sometimes we just need to put that in that effort and be vulnerable to keep them. And also look honestly at ourselves, because we're not perfect. We still have a lot to learn. And so there are some relationships where, from the mind's perspective, I was just trying to figure out like, okay, how can I have this conversation? And are they going to get into the ring with me? And I thought that they wouldn't, because I kind of had dropped some hints about, not feeling heard, not feeling seen. And I felt like I had done enough. And to be honest, I was not a lot younger, but I was younger when this happened. But I do not feel, looking back, that I had given them enough chances to get into the ring with me. I was not honest enough. I was not honest to the point of using that basic language of like, I kind of feel lonely within this dynamic. I feel lonely within this friendship, within this relationship. And I think that there are things that we did not talk about that are actually there. And I did talk to them about that like later on. But at that point, they were so hurt that I did not fight for them, because I was quick to say like, I don't think that we are going to be willing to fight for each other. I'm just going to shut this down because I feel scared. And I felt scared. And so looking back on that, I feel like I should have given them a better chance at getting into the ring with me. I think that we might have been able to work it out. And yeah, there were some factors why I think not, and that was valid from the mind's perspective. But I get why they were angry at me, because I did not get vulnerable enough for them to be able to do something about it, right? And then recently I lost a friend because we both decided, after getting into the ring with each other, we actually both wanted to get into the ring with each other and talk about it. We could not figure it out. But I think that it's beautiful that we did try. It still really hurts, and I think that it's still really sad because like I might wanted to get into the ring with them even more to maybe try and work it out, but sometimes it just doesn't work out like that. And then there are other relationships that might come back into your life later. I've had that happen as well. People from my past who came back to me and were just like, I want to rebuild this. I think that I really want this, and like, can we work on this? And so we did, and now it's better than it was before. And I think the most important thing about this whole thing and getting into the ring, besides just laying out like the basic emotions and triggers that you feel, like I feel this and you're important to me, I want to work on this, but like this is really what I'm feeling. The second part of that is wanting to understand the other person's perspective. If you don't want to understand, like truly listen and like know why they're feeling that way, you're not really getting into the ring. It's still going to be a one-way act. It's just this person telling how they feel and then just kind of ignoring that. And that's the risk that you have to take. The relationship that I just broke off was because that did not really happen. And so when that happens, just accept that they might not want to fight for you. And I think that that's an important thing to know. And that is why we are scared to step into the ring, because on the other side is also the possibility of it not working out, of the other person not wanting to understand where we're coming from. And that's because they have those triggers as well. Because it might also sound like, okay, you think I'm not good enough. You're gonna leave me? You're gonna like tell me what I'm doing wrong? Okay, you're gonna leave me? Okay, well then, goodbye. Right? And that's not even like what you're doing. You're just trying to get into the ring with them. So know that it's not even personal. Because when you get into the ring, you really trigger someone. You really like get to the most vulnerable stage, right? And so those are the triggers of that person. Just like you have your triggers, just like I did not want to feel uncomfortable. Those are my triggers. Someone else also has those because of their past and what they've been through. And so if you are being vulnerable and telling like, okay, I feel this and like this might be what I need moving forward, they're going to react from their set of triggers and experiences. So what you are telling them might mean something totally different to them. They might interpret it really differently, or they might respond really differently than you would because of their past. And that's their point of view, right? And so then it's our job to understand that, to want to understand that. So it's, of course, like a two-way street, of course. You're both getting into the ring because you both want to fight for it. So those are kind of the components that you need: the basic language and wanting to understand their triggers, their background, and keep communicating from that basic, those basic feelings, those basic triggers, because that's initially what it's about. If you're going to be pointing again, get back to those basic feelings. Like if someone is going to tell you like, yeah, but when you did that, like I did not feel like I could X, Y, and Z. Get to why does it make you feel that way? Keep asking those questions. It's about the feeling and the trigger. And that takes practice, because you're going to get triggered as well in these conversations, right? Because you might also not feel good enough, and then you are going to be pointing again. And that's why this is a really like life lesson to learn, I think. And that's also why I record this episode, because we tend to forget that it's just about how someone makes us feel and what the trigger is. sometimes it might not have anything to do with you. Them not wanting to get into the ring is just their fears of what has happened in the past, right? But also know that someone not wanting to understand you is a clear sign that you need to choose your self-respect and just let them miss you or walk away or whatever you need to do, right? And it does not have to be forever. Like, for example, that family member and I, we did not talk for a while. Like, we've had those periods. We just needed to step away because we couldn't continue. We didn't see like how to move forward. And then maybe someone else is going to try again, to step into the ring again, try again. And that's kind of this practice, right? It's about our courage to fight for the relationship. And I think that it also teaches us a lot about self-love, a lot about respect, because getting into the ring again and being vulnerable again, like truly fighting for someone, you have to be really secure within yourself to know like, okay, they might not hear me, they might not understand me, but like I still want this, so I'm going to stay in my own, I'm going to take responsibility for how I feel and my own triggers, and I'm going to learn from you like how you're feeling, what you need. That's essentially what it is. So if you're a secure person, you're able to really do that, because if this is hard for you, if you don't have a lot of self-respect and self-love, you're going to take what the other person is saying quite literally and might feel really, really triggered because you feel like, oh, that must mean something about my self-worth, like how valuable I am, what they're saying. Well, actually, no, it's just how they are feeling and how they are interpreting things. That might not be like what you're meaning to tell them. For example, if I would to tell that family member like, oh, well, when you do this, I feel like shit. And they would be like, well, that's not even my intention. Like, I don't know why you feel that way, but like, this is actually why I'm doing that. Right? It doesn't have to do a lot with you. And when you know that, when you are secure within yourself, if you know that you're worthy of kindness and respect and you're not gonna take shit anymore, you're able to look clearly at the situation that is unfolding in front of you, because you're not going to be swayed by petty wording or the pointing, right? You're just like, okay, that is not what this is about. It's about how I'm feeling, and I want to understand why you are doing what you're doing. And I understand that this is really scary because, like I said, like we get triggered. Otherwise, we wouldn't have these conversations. Just know that those fears are really normal. It's a trigger is kind of like a trauma response. Your body will tense up. Your heart will start beating really fast. You might zone out. And those things are normal. They're not that normal because it's not really a good thing, right? But we can do a lot to regulate those emotions and really be there for ourselves. And I would recommend EFT tapping for that, to just look at the trigger and to see like, where is this coming from? Am I actually in danger, or am I like okay now? What has actually happened that made me feel this way? And what is the truth? Because, for example, like I did not feel good enough because of this person, but I actually am good enough, and working with EFT has taught me that and has made me feel good enough. So I do not get triggered anymore. I can like laugh about this person if they have a different opinion about me than I have about me, right? It does really build that self-trust and self-worth if you're able to look at it and work through it and release it. That's what we do through EFT. And being scared is normal within going into the ring, because it is scary, because you are being vulnerable, right? So just take deep breaths and just know that it's also scary for the other person. And as long as you're vulnerable, most of the time people also will reflect that back to you, because they also know like, oh, they're getting vulnerable. I should be careful with, handling these emotions and feelings, and it's probably hard for them to tell me even. So most people are respectful enough to, get into the ring with you. And that is what I've learned as well. Like the moment that you are vulnerable, other people will start to reflect that back to you. And sometimes we tend to blame the other person for making us feel scared or feeling fear around talking about this. But just know that the fear that you feel lives within your body, and they are triggering it, but it's like your fear. You're not physically in danger. That's something that you have to acknowledge as well. Like, is this person physically going to hurt me, or am I really in danger, or is this just a fear that is my trigger? Because if that's the reason that you're not starting a conversation, like, that's your feeling to own, right? And you want to fight for the relationship or you don't, but the feelings that you feel are still your responsibility to regulate. Whether that's with deep breaths or EFT, or, writing out what you want to say so you can focus on the important stuff, or like giving disclaimers, like, I first want to talk and like say my piece and then you can respond, or, making it safe for yourself to get into the ring on your terms. Like, that's okay as well. Just let the other person know maybe that you're also scared to talk about this, because that's also like basic language, basic emotion. I feel scared right now to say this because I feel vulnerable bringing this up. So I hope that you can have respect and patience with me, because I have to get this out, because I want to fight for you. And I think that our relationship is that important and I don't want to lose you. So I think that we need to have this conversation, for example. And so now I want you to think about, how can I feel more empowered? How can I show up for myself in a way that reflects my self-worth? How would the person that I want to become handle these relationships difficulties? Are we running away? Are we ignoring? Or are we just being all or nothing and cutting them off? Or are we getting into the ring first? Are we being vulnerable and working on the relationship? And what would that look like? Because for every person, this is different, because we all have different triggers and experiences, right? So think about, like, how would that person show up for the other person and for themselves? I think that's really essential. And I think that it's such a sign of strength if you are willing to get into the ring. I think it takes a lot of courage and a lot of self-love as well. And love for the other person as well, and being able to really listen, to want to understand as well. That's not easy to do. Also know that it's valid to not want to do that. And maybe if it's too scary, or you feel like you're not being heard, or the other person does not want to fight for you equally, put your energy where it's valued. Put your energy with people who, like, would fight for you. I hope that you have people around you that will fight for you, or you will manifest people who are like that, because that makes a world of a difference. And also know that it takes work. Like I said, within my family, like, I did not think that I wanted to speak to this person ever again. I was really done, and it takes a lot for me to be like that. But I'm so grateful that we've been able to repair that relationship, and it took years. It really took years, and it took me being able to say, like, to them, I don't want to lose you. Let's get into the ring again. I don't know how to fix this. And they also didn't know. But gradually, it did work. And so don't give up if it's like someone that you really want to fight for, that you know wants to fight for you also. I think that is essential. If someone does not want to fight for you, don't put your energy there, because that's not self-respect. Go to the places where you are appreciated. That's one of the, I think the quote is a little different, but that's one of my favorite quotes, because it's going to drain your energy when you stay in places and with people that don't appreciate you or don't want you there. Like I said, you deserve people that fight for you. And so the moment that you start to work for that, the moment that you set those standards, that's when you will start to attract them, because you say, like, I don't want this, I want this. That's what you focus on, that's what you will attract, right? So I hope that after listening to this episode, you feel courageous enough to be vulnerable, because there will be people that want to fight with you, for you as well. And I've gone to the extreme part in this episode of how it can go, just because I think that it does apply to, for example, a friend also wanting to spend more time with their partner than with their friends anymore. Like, a simple conversation can probably fix that, right? But we're still really scared of the ultimatum of, being like, yeah, but my boyfriend is more important than you. And, we're scared of that rejection, right? But then you'll know, like, they don't want to fight for me. And so then you go find someone who does want to fight for you, right? It's not that simple because it hurts and you have been vulnerable and that hurts as well. But then right? And I also regret not being vulnerable in the past because like then I would have known where I stood and if it was still being able to be repaired, right? And so it is also giving the other person, being respectful to the other person to make the decision to get into the ring with you. I think that is also a loving act to do, to give them the opportunity to make things right with you. And so, yeah, that does take courage because one person has to start that conversation. And so I hope it's you. I hope that you fight for the people that you love. And even though it's scary, you still know that this is what is important to you. But you also love yourself enough to recognize when someone is not willing to get into the ring with you and take better care of you and know that it's not a reflection of your worth. If someone doesn't want that, it's just a reflection of their past and their triggers and their ability to get uncomfortable, their ability to get vulnerable with you. That's ultimately what it comes down to. So it's not going to be about you. So that was the episode for today. I promise that the next episode will be a little lighter. If you have any suggestions, always let me know. If you want someone to help you get a new perspective on a relationship dynamic that is a little funky, is a little weird right now, and you want to work through it, and you want to look at those triggers to see like what part of the dynamic you are playing into, I would love to help you with that. And to release those triggers, to feel more compassionate towards yourself and courageous to stay in your own energy so you can kind of handle any conflict that comes your way. I love you guys. I hope you have a wonderful week and I hope to see you in another episode.